So now that we've talked about environmental factors and other factors such as age of onset of your first period or age of onset of menopause, now we have to talk about genetics. Some people are just genetically programmed to be predisposed to breast cancer through two genes. The genes are named with the acronym BRCA1 or BRCA2. And Julie actually works in this field, and I'd like to invite Julie up to tell us a little bit about these genes and the role that they play in the development of breast cancer.
So the BRCA gene actually contributes to cancer in about 10% of the population. 10% of people that are going to get breast cancer, it's due to the hereditary cause. So 90% of breast cancer, we still don't really know why it's being caused. So that 10% is usually because you and your family members have it. So when you think about how your family would get breast cancer, you're gonna think about your mom's side and you're gonna think about your dad's side. You're never gonna join them together. So you're gonna think, does your mom have breast or ovarian cancer? And there's about 5 cancers that are linked to the BRCA genes, BRCA1 and BRCA2. And those 5 cancers, the 2 most important are breast and ovarian, followed by pancreatic, melanoma, as well as prostate. Prostate is one of the newest cancers that is being part of the syndrome, if you were to say. So when you think about your family, think about what kind of cancers was on my mom's side and what kind of cancer was on your dad's side.
So let's talk to Cindy again, because she told us earlier that her grandmother, I believe, had breast cancer. Can you tell us about your family history and maybe let Julie do an assessment?
So as I said before, it was my father's mother, and she had breast cancer at about 43. I guess back at that time, I was so young, I guess she had chemotherapy, and it never came back. So that was great. She didn't pass away with it. And she also had colon cancer as well. Okay. A portion of her colon was taken out, and she didn't die with that either. So, but I guess I'm concerned just, how that passes on.
Okay, so again, let's clarify. Your grandmother was on your father's side, and she was diagnosed at an early age, about 43. Is that correct? Okay. So first of all, it was diagnosed at an early age, so that is somewhat concerning. But cancer from there in the family, there really isn't any. There's no, and what's interesting too is we often think about breast cancer as being something that a woman needs to think about, right? And the BRCA gene is something that a woman needs to think about. But the fact of the matter is, if we talk about how your cancer lineage goes down, is it was your dad's mother. So if she had the gene, she would potentially pass it on to your father, right? Clearly, it's very unlikely that it would be in the form of breast cancer, that it would be presented in your father. If he maybe got the gene, it may be presented as prostate cancer or pancreatic melanoma. He didn't have any of that. And you all have aunts and uncles, and they don't have any. So my first guess at this, and I'm not the doctor, you are, but if I were to suggest testing, I'm not sure you would necessarily fall in line with that. She's a second generation relative. It's not your mother at 43. That may be a little bit more concerning. Maybe your mother would have been concerned had we had this test available, back then. One caveat to that is that the Ashkenazi Jewish population has a much higher risk of carrying the BRCA gene. So in the general population, the BRCA gene presents itself in about 1 in 400 patients. In the Ashkenazi Jewish patient population, it's 1 in 40. So if you were to say that you are of the Ashkenazi Jewish descent, I would maybe make my recommendations otherwise. But I don't think that you would necessarily be a person to be concerned about the BRCA gene. And if I can go back for 1 second and maybe do just a hypothetical, say with John, we may think, oh, John doesn't necessarily be tested, he's a man. Well, he has a daughter, right? So if it was passed down to him, it might not present at all in John because of, breast and ovarian are the most common. Then prostate, melanoma, pancreatic are very low on the totem pole. So maybe it never presents in John, But if he passed that gene on to his daughter, it could very well show up as breast or ovarian. So I think that one thing that the general population really thinks about when they think about BRCA1 or 2 is that this is a woman's problem, and it's really not. It is everyone's issue, and men should really think about the cancer history for themselves as well.
Some great advice. And what about my wife Debbie, who doesn't know her genetic background because she was adopted?
Well, in that case, I would say I think genetics, as you know probably better than anybody else sitting here, is going to play a bigger and bigger role in our lives and in medicine. And if you have the opportunity and you have the resources to get that test, I would do it. It would put you at ease. You all have 3 daughters. It's important for all of you to know. But because you don't know your family history and you have the resources, I would probably do it.
Thank you so much, Julie, for that.